Better skin from your body wash? Try Olay Body Wash with skincare super ingredient collagen. Olay Body Wash with collagen hydrates to rejuvenate skin surface cells for healthier looking skin in just 14 days. From dry and dull to firm and radiant. So I can step into my day feeling my best in my skin. And now try Olay Body Lotion, which hydrates for visibly firmer skin that improves over time. Olay Body, fearless in my skin.
I can see from a distance, and I wonder, is he listening or just trying to take you home? Do you feel the sparks flying? Is he even trying? Is he lighting up your phone? He better be buying you flowers and taking you out on the town, treating you right, yeah. He better be doing the little things, anything that's gonna make your night. I hope he knows who you are when he holds you in his arms. Superman will pick you up through the highs and lows. The night that lights the dark will never break your heart. He'll know who you are and never let you go. You were meant to move the earth. You were meant to move the stars. Does he know what you're worth? I hope he knows who you are. Hope he knows who you are. If you're stuck in the ground and you're ready to get out, go on and rattle the cage. If you know he's not the one and you think it's time to run, there's no time to waste. Yeah, he better be doing the little things, anything that's gonna take you higher. I hope he knows who you are when he holds you in his arms. Superman will pick you up through the highs and lows. The night that lights the dark will never break your heart. He'll know who you are and never let you go. You were meant to move the earth. You were meant to move the stars. Does he know what you're worth? I hope he knows who you are. Hope he knows who you are. I hope he knows who you are. You deserve everything. You deserve to be his queen. Hope he knows who you are when he holds you in his arms. Superman will pick you up in the highs and lows. The night that lights the dark will never break your heart. He'll know who you are and never let you go. You were meant to move the earth. You were meant to move the stars, girl. Does he know what you're worth? I hope he knows who you are. Hope he knows who you are.
have 4 seconds left on his timer, so just gonna switch over. Alrighty. Hi, unicorn. Oh, my voice fucking went fucky there for a second. That was fun. Excuse me, child. Hi, pretty. Yeah. So as the title says, we're going to be going over pop culture mistakes concerning Norse mythology, and we're also going to go over like the family tree and some of the descriptions. I probably won't be able to get to everything today, but
Hello, motherfucker.
why does that not show up right? Oh, it pisses me off. It's okay. It's a taste. Hi, lovely. But yeah, we're going to. I'm doing good. I'm going to try and get to as much of the Norse family tree as I can, but there is a lot, and there are some things that don't really make sense. Yes, unicorn it is, and she refuses to nap. Hi, monkey. Hi, Pikachu. Yeah? Are you going to be a menace today? Are you going to be screaming my whole stream? Probably. No, there are 6 people here. Hi, guys. Thank you, Inked. Okay. So we're going to start with one of the biggest misconceptions with Norse mythology, which would be that Loki and Thor are brothers. And everybody knows Norse mythology because of Marvel, which is totally cool, and it's great to see them finding stuff and like educating people, but they're educating people wrong, and it needs to be fixed. So the reality is that Loki and Thor are not like brothers or blood brothers or anything. The reality is that Loki and Odin are actually the blood brothers, and they're the ones that have that bond. My voice is not having it today. Jesus Christ. And Frigg, the mom in the Marvel Universe, is not Thor's mother. So the reality is that Frigg's mom is Thor's mother. Which technically makes them siblings. I think. Yes, makes them half siblings. Then the other one is Hel. Like that was a big one. Hel in the Thor movies is not Loki or Thor's sibling. Hel is actually Loki's daughter, and it's one of 5 children, 5 or 6 children that Loki has. And then 2 other big examples of Loki's children are Jormungandr and Fenrir, actually, are also Loki's children, which explains a lot. There's a lot. There's the Norse family tree is, and some of it doesn't make any sense because like there's ones that don't have parents, so they just kind of like poofed into existence. Or at least that's the general like consensus. Because there's not a whole lot of reliable sources left for Norse mythology, which kind of sucks. And part of that's just translation. Things didn't get translated right, and like a big thing that didn't get translated right is the Jotun. So like it's generally translated as giants, but it's more the more correct translation would be I think, hold on, I have it pulled up here. Would be devourers. So kind of like the general consensus, like if the Aesir or the gods that you see in Marvel, because it's the closest reference I can make for like where you see them, are represent order and civilization. The Jotnar are primordial chaos and destruction. So it's that balance. But let me pull this back up. I'm gonna minimize that for now. This one. Pull that up over there so I can read that better. That there. X out of that. Minimize that and pull that back up. Okay. Why does that make my face look so washed out? Okay. So I'm going to actually hold on, I need to move these tabs around a little bit so I kind of have everything in one place. If I don't, I'm just going to get confused about where everything is. Hi, Waffle! Getting a bunch of the new people I met in the GR fam. Hi. So I think I'm going to pull up this. So this is you guys won't be able to really read the names, which I apologize for, but it'll give me a chance to kind of show you like where things get a little bit messy in the Norse mythology. I'm gonna turn this up a little bit. I really should probably jump. So this is Ymir. I'm good, Waffle, and thank you. I appreciate it. This is Ymir. So Ymir is considered like top dog or like the original. Hold on, I'm gonna pull this over here. Give me a second. That is not what I wanted. God damn it. There we go. Okay. So according to because Ymir is considered a Jotun. But he's the first being to form within the primeval chaos that preceded everything. Well, him and a cow, as you can see, and that's I don't really know how to say that. I don't want to butcher it. But it's the cow and Ymir, and they're generally considered the first. Yeah. So, monkey. Really? Nobody's gonna be able to hear me talk if you keep screaming. Do you want this? No, you don't want this? No, lovely. Well, kind of. I mean, I'm kind of going over like stuff that isn't portrayed correctly right now. And like the basics of the family tree. Because a lot of the stuff in like the Marvel universe and everything, as much as I love it, and they did, a good job with it, but they did get some of the stories wrong. So with Ymir, and Ymir created the Jotun race. Yeah, she is. She's tired, but she doesn't want to nap, and so it's just been a day of it. But I will be right back. Hold on a minute, guys. All right. Um. So Ymir and the cow. I don't know how to say the name, so I'm not gonna bother. I don't want to butcher it. Were the first beings to come out of, like, in terms of what came first. Um, and in some stories, the cow is considered Ymir's child. In other cases, not. So it just kind of depends. Um, but Ymir directly created the Jotun race, the Jotnar race, of course, because he himself was a Jotun. Um, and then from the cow, who somehow had a child with a saltstone. I'm not gonna question that too much. Um, created essentially the start to the Aesir. Oh, you guys are talking about my brain. You guys are talking about Elden Ring. Gross. No, I already told Wyatt, like, no. Mm-mm. So cow and saltstone equals a Jotun. That's also the start to this mess. Um, to this whole thing, like this entire family tree's got it's kind of a mess. Um, but on this side, so this side is a little bit. Oh no, I don't mind. Like, y'all talk amongst yourselves in my chat. Like, I'm just talking right now. Like, you guys talk amongst yourselves. Like, I don't mind. Hi, Stereo. I'm happy to see you. Nothing wrong with that. Um. Okay, that's gonna overheat there, so we're just gonna move that. So if I remember correctly on names, this is Booney. I think that's how that's said. Hold on. If I remember correctly, I don't think I'm quite correct on that. I think that's. And oh wait, no, that's Bor, Buri, something like that. So, um, Buri was inside the salt stone that the cow licked, if that makes any sense. um, which kind of makes the cow his mother, but at the same time, like, not really. Um, I'm happy you guys are here and you guys decided to stop in on mine. And Buri, I'm guessing asexually reproduced because Buri's a dude. So I'm guessing asexual reproduction there. Because that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Is there's Boar and then the one he's married to here. So the yellow lines are marriage, by the way, just so you guys know. I know you guys can't read the names. I can barely read them either. The yellow lines are marriage. White is children. This dark gray here that you can probably barely see is divorced. Pink is affairs. And this blue one here, this like teal one is seedless creation. So that pops up here as well. Bor and Besla are the parents of Odin, Vili, and Ve. All over the place. No, you're good, March. You're all good. I totally get it. I'm just talking about mythology right now, so. We're gonna focus on this section of the tree for now. We'll get to this mess over here later. So Bor and Besla are the parents of these three here: Odin, Vili, and Ve. And pronunciations are weird. And Frigg over here, mother to these three, who's married to Odin, was also at one point married to Vili and also Ve. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't at the same time. I don't think they're twins. They might be twins. Frigg was married to them, I think, before she was married to Odin. They didn't have any children together. But from here, from Frigg and Odin, we get. Hold on. I'm trying to remember who all we get from them, because there's not a whole lot of like legitimate freaking sources on it. Oh, yeah, here's a better thing. This one I have up isn't fully correct. So this tree isn't fully correct. This one's more accurate in terms of who goes where. But this one's better to more easily read. But for Frigg and Odin's children, we have that's Balder, Hermod, and Holder. Here, and Balder married Nana, and they had Forseti. And then Odin got around. Not as bad as Zeus in Greek mythology, but Odin got around. I don't think anybody will ever be as bad as Zeus. That motherfucker got around. But so that's their bloodline. That's friggin' Odin, and that's the only children they had was Balder, Holder, and Hermod. From Odin, however, Odin's got all these paint lines. So I'll start with the first one, which is actually Frigg's mother. Jord, who was a Jotun, and together they had Thor, who got around once out of his marriage. And they had Thor, and Thor married Sif. So, to anybody that's seen Marvel, Sif is the female warrior in the first movie that he fights with. She's actually supposed to be blonde. In Norse mythology, she's actually blonde. Um, and they're married, and then they have 2 kids, and their children are um, Modi and Thrud. And then Thor went outside of his marriage to God, John Saxa, and they had Magni. And then Sif will get to because part of her affair is also, or no, her one affair is Scotty, which is a Jotun who became a seer kind of through marriage. And they had oh God, what's her name? I can't remember her name. Hold on a second. I don't remember what the name of their child is. I think it's Lily or Uli or Ul, something like that. I think it's Ul. Um, and they had a son. And then so Scotty's father is another Jotun. I can't say his name, so I am not gonna bother. Not that you guys can see it anyways, because it's kind of hard to read it. But I will zoom in a little bit. And then Scotty married Njord, who was married to his sister at one point, and they had 3, and then they had children, which was weird. But Zeus, again, compared to like other mythologies, Norse is probably, the one that's just not as bad. They had Freyr and Freya and Odd. I think his name's Odd, or it's Odie. I think it's Odd. And Scotty had an affair with one of Nord's children, and that's this one here. But these, or no, Odd's not. No. Hold on, I got that wrong. So Freya and Freya are the only children of these 2, and Odd is Freya's husband, who Scotty had an affair with, which, yikes. And then Freya had 4 affairs. I think the green is elf or dwarf, one of the 2. Had an affair with these 4 gentlemen over here. If we go back up though to Odin, Odin had 3 more affairs outside of having Thor. So there's God, why can't I remember that name? I can't remember the name for that one. It's something with a G, and I just can't remember at the moment. I'm trying to see if they have it on this page I'm looking at. It doesn't look like it. Sadly. No, it doesn't look like they have it. So I honestly don't know what her name is, but they had their son here who is, again, can't remember the name to save my life. Then again, some of the names like I couldn't pronounce anyways, because some of those names are just a mess. And that was the only child they had. And then if we move over here, Odin with Rund, I think. They had Vale. And then again, another the fair for Odin with Heimer. Odin fucked a dude. And they had Tyr. I can go over any of these. I can go over any of what their jobs were really at any point. If you guys would be down to hearing that. Hymir was married to Hroder, I think that's her name, and they didn't have any children together. One of Odin's children is Brage, or Drage, or one of the two. And they were married to Idun. And again, they didn't have any children. The fun part is this little blue line here that actually connects Odin, Loki, and Honer. I think that's what that one is. And these are actually, I think this is supposed to be Adam and Eve, I think, but in Norse mythology, so it's Ask and Embla. And they were seedless creations from a combination of Odin, Honer, and Loki. They got together to create Adam and Eve, essentially. Hi, Lethal. Just talking about Norse mythology. And as we move over, we have Surt up here, who's just kind of there. He's a Jotun. He's a Jotun, so the general consensus is that he came from Ymir. And then we have now coming down to Loki, and Loki's little tree here. His parents are Lafay and let me scroll up so I can see how this is spelled, if I can pronounce it or not. And Farbati, I think that's how it's said. And he has two brothers, and it's Hellblind, I think. Hellblind or something. Hellblind and I don't honestly know how to say that, and I'm gonna butcher it anyways. Yeah, and I'm not saying any actual like pronunciation for it, which is fun. Okay. And then, so these two, I'm guessing are twins again. Like, hi, Polar Bear. Oh God, my voice went kind of fucky there for a minute. Hi, Polar Bear. How are you? So from Loki, Loki was married to Sigyn. I think that's her name, if I remember correctly. guessing so. Hold on, I'm just trying to see if I can find her name in here. No. Of course not. Okay, so Loki was married to Sigyn, and they had, and I'm gonna probably butcher it per usual on what that is. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find a better. Ow. Thing for it. Yeah. So he was married to Sigyn, and they had Vali and Narfi. I'm good. Just kind of talking about mythology and everything. Right now, we're going over Loki's children. This mess. So they had Loki and Sigyn had Vali and Narfi, and then from and so one of his affairs is Angerbode or Angerboda, and together they had Jormungandr, Hel, and Fenrir. And Hel in the Marvels in the Marvel universe is portrayed as their sister, as Loki and Thor's sister. But in reality, she's Loki's child, which keeps things interesting. And Jormungandr, Jormungandr was portrayed correctly for the most part on what he does. He is the world eater. They just don't mention that they like I said, they changed a lot of things with it. So it's not said that he's Loki's child. But Loki had a penchant for creating things that weren't exactly normal. And then Fenrir as well is also his child from Angerbode. And we see Fenrir as well, but Fenrir is portrayed as Hel's pet, which frustration. And then the other affair that Loki had was actually to a horse that he created. Named Svaldifari. And then the rest of the gods got mad because Skaldafari was considered a super horse. So the work and everything went super. So the reason the horse was built was for someone agreed to build a fortified settlement for the gods in exchange for Freya, the sun, and the moon. The gods set an unrealistic deadline in hopes that the builder would fail and the work would free, but Loki convinced them to allow the builder to use his horse. Except it turns out the horse named Valdifari is a super horse. So the work goes super quickly and the gods get super mad. They then order Loki to fix the problem, which he took as have sex with a horse. But the reality of the situation is not that Loki fucked the horse fucked Loki. And then they had Sleipnir, which I mean, for the 50 minutes that I've been live, it's been okay. I mean, I had like 9 people at one point, and I think from people just switching or people getting done with work, they got to close their phones and everything, which is fine. Sleipnir is an 8-legged horse, which is Loki's son, but also Odin's steed, which, keeps things interesting. This whole fucking family tree is a mess, or at least parts of it are a mess, not all of it. If we scroll back up and we look at the rest of the Jotuns, which is where we're at, there's whatever this guy's name is, because that's a lot to say. Looks like that's a mouthful. And he's just kind of standalone. And like I said earlier, the general consensus is that even those that don't have listed parentage or anything, they're blue, which means they're Jotun, which means they come from Ymir. So it's a general consensus, because there aren't a whole lot of reliable sources left, which kind of sucks. When in terms of stories and everything. But then there's, I think his name is Gnarle. I think, and again, I'm probably butchering the hell out of pronunciations. But I'm trying, so it's something. I'm trying to find, where the heck is Forsetti? Oh, there he is. Forsetti's here. Okay. Back up to here. Again, I am probably butchering pronunciation. Thank you, Lethal. Have a good workout. Gnarle, or whatever, however that's said. Well, let me pull up my other tab that I've got that would probably help me a little bit. It's Narfi, actually, and then Nalgfari and not Nalgfari, or not is Narfi's child, and so not here had ow, had was married to 3 people at the exact same time. And there's Nalgfari, Dellinger, and Anar. Here is where it gets a little bit weird, because these two have the exact same name here, and this isn't correct. So this part of it isn't correct. This is actually supposed to be, I think it was that's Dellinger's child. That's supposed to be Dagger. Jord is supposed to be Mother Earth. Jord had Frigg. And then this is Ode here. And that was Nogfari and Not's child here. Jord was the only one that had children out of the three, or at least that's documented. A lot of it's been lost, so it's hard to really fill in a lot of the missing pieces. I think this is Mundafair. I think that's how you pronounce that. Yeah, pretty sure that's how you pronounce that. Is Mundafair. And Mundafair had I think that's supposed to be it's the moon, and I don't know how to say that. But there's Sol and oh god, now I gotta Google it. Hold on. Actually, I'm gonna open that up in a different tab in a different browser. Mani is who that is. So Mani and Sol were siblings. Now Sol you see in Smite actually, which keeps things interesting. And she's actually really pretty. Smite got it accurate. Smite got it very accurate on it in terms of story, at the least. And then over here we have a Jotun and an Asir, and I think his name is Ager, and then Ron or Roan. Again, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. Ron. So Aegir and Ron had the 9 sisters, which I am not going to try and pronounce all those names because it's a lot. Hold on, let me scroll up to see if I can at least get some of them. I know they're there. Hemming Leva Dufa Blood. Oh God. Bloodaghada, Hefring, Uder, Hrone, Bilja, Drofnin, and Kolga. They're kind of like the spirits of the waves, I guess, or specific aspects of the ocean. They had Heimdall, so they somehow managed to make Heimdall. Don't ask me how, I don't know, but they made Heimdall, and Heimdall's the gatekeeper. I think that's hold on. Yeah, so he's essentially like the lookout for like the Asir. Um he's got all mothers. So, you know. But he is the guardian of the Bifrost, and so they got that right in Marvel actually, on who Heimdall is. But with anything in pop culture, you know, they have to not follow you know, traditional stories. Um so, you know, the skin color isn't correct. As bad as that sounds, like that's the reality of it is like the Norse mythology is very and I hate to say whitewashed, but I mean there's really no other way around it. But that's just the reality of how it was, and especially from, you know, where Norse mythology originates. It's just kind of the reality of the situation. Um just about everyone was white, and that's just the reality of it. Like I don't if somebody has a problem with that, I don't know what to tell you because it's history. It's old stories. But and then you got like Moomer, I think that's it, or something, and I don't. That's supposed to be a Jotun. It doesn't make any sense to me. Where is trying to find. It's not what I wanted. Norse gods. Okay. Nice that. I'm gonna open that back up. And then we have a few Asir that just kind of hang out on the side. I know that one's Fulia or Fula, and that one's Air. And then we have the three sisters down here. I think they're sisters, or they're just. I think they're considered like fate, or like the fates. Like in Greek mythology, I think they're supposed to be the fates. I gotta see if I can find a better thing to read for their names. Ooh, this one actually might have it. Hold on a second. Even that one doesn't have it. I think they're like the fates, because that's really the only thing that really makes sense to me. Is that they're considered the fates? Um, but yeah, they're considered the fates, and that's really it for. There's a lot of holes in the Norse mythology, like family tree and everything. As much as it sucks, there really is. Because a lot of it either wasn't translated correctly or it was lost over time. Like with anything, it disappears over time, sadly. But I think I covered everything I wanted to cover with the tree, which is basically like the pop culture mistakes, and just kind of go over the basics. But from here, we're going to go towards like more like what they did as like job as kind of what they had domain over. The big ones, Heimdall was, the protector and kind of the guardian of the Bifrost and the lookout, and it's kind of like the basics of what we're going to go over, just because there is a lot. There's a lot. Minimize that for a second. I want to pull that up, but we're going to pull this up over here. So, as I talked about earlier, Ask and Embla. which I referenced Adam and Eve, which which is pretty accurate. They're the first humans in Norse mythology. Now, mind you, like in others, it's not quite the same. But in Norse mythology, Ask and Embla are the first humans, male and female respectively, to be created in Norse mythology. And they were given Midgard, the world of human civilization, for their dwelling place. They became the father and mother of the entire human species. The meaning of the name Ask is very straightforward. The original Norse form of the word is Asker or Astri, because they were actually made from from trees. Oh, god damn it. And I don't have any of my mods online, so hold on a minute. I need to fix that. Give me just a moment, please. We're going to get rid of that real quick. Because sadly, all of my mods are busy. Once stuff loads, because it takes forever. So we're going to get rid of that. I don't need that here. We don't need that shit. Okay, minimize that. They because it was Odin, Loki, and Honer. I think that's English. It's not even English, but you know, same concept. They found 3 pieces of driftwood, or 2 tree trunks, perhaps pieces of driftwood, lying on the beach, and they were shaped like a man and a woman, but they were lifeless and powerless. So they decided to give them what they lacked and make them true humans. Odin blew into them the breath of life, while his 2 companions imparted inspired mental activity, a healthy complexion, and the ability to speak, hear, and see. They dressed them in suitable clothes and named the man Ask and the woman Embla. And Ask is very straightforward, with the meaning Astri, a fitting name since the pair was made from tree trunks. The meaning of Embla's name is more elusive. Some of the main scholarly guesses so far are elm, waterpot, and vine. If vine is correct, it could be a sexual metaphor. Vines were used as kindling, and the drills were made of harder wood, so the drill, which corresponds to Ask, would make a fire, which corresponds to life, by boring into the vine, which corresponds to Embla. And that's, if that's correct. There's no direct translation of it. But that's the beginning of humans for Norse mythology. We were trees. We were trees at one point. And there's a lot others than just like the seer and the veneer. And like there's the giants, which is the Jotnar, the elves, the dwarves. There's the land spirits, the Valkyries, and the Valkyries are pretty straightforward. It was warriors. There's really no way. There's no other way around that. So a Valkyrie, they were choosers of the fallen. They were helping spirits of Odin. But the modern image is largely accurate for what it is. Um, but in heathen times, they were far more sinister than they are portrayed as. Um, the meaning of their name, choosers of the slain, refers not only to their choosing who gains admittance to Valhalla, but also to their choosing who dies in battle and using malicious magic to ensure that their preferences in this regard are brought to fruition. Examples of Valkyries deciding who lives and who dies um, is in some of like the old poems and stuff, and like songs from way back when. Um, the Valkyrie's gruesome side is illustrated most vividly in a poem where 12 Valkyries are seen prior to the Battle of Clontarf, sitting at a loom and weaving the tragic fate of the warriors. They use intestines for their thread, severed heads for weights, and swords and arrows for beaters, all while chanting their intentions with ominous delight, which is creepy, to say the least. Um, the dwarves are pretty. So originally, though, a dwarf is a certain kind of invisible being. No one really knows what the word dwarf and its cognates originally meant, but there's no indication that had anything to do with a small stature, a characteristic which is never mentioned in ancient descriptions of these beings. The dwarves are pitch black in appearance and live underground in Svalterfheim. I don't think I got that right by any means, but a place which was probably thought of as a labyrinthine complex of mines and forges. Um, the dwarves are most often noted for being extremely skilled smiths and craft people. Among the many irreplaceable treasures created by them are Mjolnir, Gleipnir, the chain that bound Fenrir when all others failed, um, Skidbladnir, a ship which belongs to Freyr and always has a favorable wind. Gungnir, which is the spear of Odin. Draupnir, which was a ring owned by Odin. Um, the Brisingamen, a magnificent necklace owned by Freya, and the golden hair of Sif. So the story behind Sif's hair is Sif had very pretty blonde hair, and then Loki was a dick and shaved it off in her sleep. And then she got like actual gold hair from the dwarves. Um, dwarves are also extremely knowledgeable, wise, and magically powerful. They turn to stone if exposed to the rays of the sun, however. Four dwarves, Austri, Vestri, Nordri, and Sudri, east, west, north, and south, hold aloft the four corners of the sky, evidencing their colossal strength. The lines between the dwarves, elves, and dead humans are very blurry. The dwarves are occasionally called black elves, and in some instances, they're described as being dead or resembling human corpses, which is always a delightful thing to see. For the elves were considered demigod-like beings. The elves are luminous beings, more beautiful than the sun, whose exalted status is demonstrated by their constantly being linked with the Asir and Vanir gods. The lines between elves and other spiritual beings, such as the gods, giants, dwarves, and land spirits, are blurry at best. And it seems unlikely that the heathen Germanic peoples themselves made any cold, systematic distinctions between these various groupings. It's especially hard to discern the boundary that distinguishes the elves from the Vanir gods and goddesses. Um, Freyr is the lord of the elves' homeland, Alfheim. And at least one Old Norse poem um, uses the word elves to designate the Vanir. They also have ambivalent relations with humans. Elves commonly cause human illnesses, but they also have the power to heal them and seem especially willing to do so if sacrifices are offered to them, which makes them sound like, gods to me, but, And they did interbreed, and, they had half elf, children, who had the appearance of humans, but they possessed extraordinary intuitive and magical powers. Apparently humans can become elves after death, which because there's considerable overlap between the worship of human ancestors and the worship of elves. Um, so it's always fun. Land spirits, it kind of like minor gods in Greek mythology. Like there's the god of the trees or whatever. Um, when they dwell within particular places or features of the land, they wield considerable influence over the well-being of the land and all who depend on it. They can bless or curse those who live or travel within their land and be blessed or cursed by them in return. They're fierce protectors of their native lands, seldom tolerant of mistreatment and dishonor, and seem to have a very passionate disposition in general. Um, they and the Nords, they weren't called Vikings or Nords, seem to have taken great care to maintain the land spirit's favor. For example, the first law code of Iceland instructed those entering the country by ship to remove the dragon heads from their boats when they sighted land, lest they frighten the land spirits. Um, so, as with the elves, though, the worship of the land spirits continued long after they were officially converted to Christianity, and the veneration of the gods had ceased. So it was like one of the things that just kind of lived on even after. Um, where is this one? Oh no, that's just the ones that fight in Valhalla. That's not what I wanted. Um, but on top of the of the Norse, there's also we also have to consider the nine worlds, um, which are held in the branches and roots of the world tree Yggdrasil. though none of the sources for our present knowledge of Norse mythology and religion describe exactly where and around Yggdrasil they're located. Any and all modern images are, by definition, speculative and unverifiable. But there's Midgard, the world of humanity; Asgard, the world of the Aesir tribe of gods and goddesses; Vanaheim, which is the Vanir; Jotunheim is the giants; Niflheim, Niflheim is the primordial world of ice. Muspelheim is the primordial world of fire. Alfheim is the elves. Nidavellir is the world of the dwarves, and Hell, which is the underworld, essentially is Hell's domain, and she, that's her world. Hold on just a moment, guys. Almost fell over. No, close that, close that, close that. Let's see. Well, I'm gonna minimize some and move some stuff around. Give me just a second. Oop, I'm gonna close that. Wasn't what I wanted. But did I close that or did I just minimize it? I closed it. Son of a bitch. Okay, there we go. I accidentally closed it trying to switch tabs. That. We're gonna go back to here. Let's see. What else we got? Ooh, another thing that's I I guess people really don't know because it's never talked about, and it's not even said in like Marvel. But how the Norse gods live so long. Um, so so the story based around that is so the story behind how they stay young is Idun and her golden apples. Um, One day, Odin and Loki left Asgard to see what was going on in Midgard, the land of men. You may know that Odin is the father of the Norse gods, Loki is the god of fire and mischief. Anyway, these two gods have been trekking all day in the mountains, and come nightfall, they were definitely hungry. They saw some cows grazing, they decided to kill one and have a few steaks. Odin jointed the beef while Loki got the fire going. This was the work of a moment for him, as he was the god of fire. Even though the wood was wet, it would have taken me or you a lot longer. Soon the meat was cooking over the fire, but there was a problem. The fire was hot, the meat was there, but for some reason it would not cook. Try as they would, and the two of them did try, their dinner remained raw. In the light of the fire, they saw a shadow of a huge bird. They looked up and saw an eagle perched on a branch, silhouetted against the sky. Um, and the bird basically told them that their their meat will not cook unless they agree to give the eagle whatever they wanted. And the gods were tired, cold, and hungry, so they agreed without inquiring as to the demands of the strange creature. At once the meat began to sizzle, how good it smelled, but just as they were about to help themselves, the creature in the shape of an eagle swooped down and grabbed the best bit of it with his beak. He gulped it down, no chewing for him, and took another piece. And Loki tried to stop him, and then Loki got hit with a log, and then dragged and bashed and bounced about by rocks and branches as they flew over the ground. Um, and then the eagle put him down and said, "I am the great Tahasi, and you're not the only one who can change shape. You'll never be free unless you agree to get me Eden's golden apples." And and Loki hesitated because Tahasi wasn't really asking for apples. He was asking for what Asgard prized above all: eternal youth and beauty. And Loki was worried about what his punishment would be if he stole that. But he was tired of being bruised and dragged about, so he agreed. Tasi flew off, screeching, "Keep your word, you have me to deal with." Loki, he didn't want that, brushed himself down brushed himself down thoughtfully. Then he rejoined Odin, who was already tucking into his steak, and began to eat himself. This expedition to Midgard had not been very successful, and soon the two gods returned to Asgard. Loki did intend to keep his word, and he began by making friends with Idun, keeper of the golden apples. This wasn't hard, as Idun was as sweet and good natured as her lovely apples. Loki made a good start by telling her about his travels. He had plenty of funny and interesting tales to tell. Every time he went to get his own apple, for all the gods ate them once a week, he took the chance to tell Idun something or make her laugh. One day he said, Idun, these are wonderful apples, but they're second best. I have seen better. I don't believe you. And basically, I don't believe you. You don't believe me. Come and see for yourself. And then I think I will. And then, Loki told her to bring, her apples so they can compare them. And then Idun went to fetch her wondrous apples. She kept them in the sort of basket they deserved. It was made of purest gold, just the right size, and the handle was studded with rubies. Loki and Idun made for the gates of Asgard. Looked up and he saw a huge shadow in the sky. He knew what that meant. All of a sudden, Idun shivered. "I'm not sure I want to go. I'll come another day." Loki said, a walk outside will do you good. And he took her by took her by the arm and they went out. And then Tassi swooped down first prize. They did in her apples, and you know, um, Tassi took, just kidnapped her, and um, she was fated to be held prisoner in his cold and gloomy castle. And meanwhile, at first, no one in Asgard had noticed. And then things changed. The goddesses complained to each other of one or two gray hairs. Odin, who must have been the oldest, if he was the father of the gods, got backache, and one or two little wrinkles, crow's feet, smile lines, that sort of thing began to appear on the faces of the gods. They were not happy about it. If they were gods, they had to be immortal. Besides, who doesn't want to look young and beautiful? They held an assembly of the gods. Number one suspect in the case of the missing apples was Loki, for suspicion always falls on him when there is mischief afoot. And there's a meeting and demanding that Loki tell the truth, and all sorts of threats and divine curses were bandied about. And Loki finally admitted he was forced into it. And then Thor, the strongest of the gods, seized hold of Loki and shook him terribly, so that he was in fear for his life. Loki said he'd get the apples back. And if you kill me, you'll never eat those apples again. When things had calmed down, the gods helped Loki turn in the shape of a falcon. He flew and flew until he reached Thassa's castle. Idun was walking on the ramparts with her jeweled basket. Quickly, Loki turned her into nut, clutched it tight with his claws, and soared high towards Asgard. It was lucky he had a good start, for Thassa came home. How he roared when he saw that Idun and her apples were gone. He guessed what happened, changed it once into an eagle, and flew off. Spurred on my anger and fury, Loki flew as quickly as he could, and falcons fly very fast. But it is the eagle that rules the skies, and little by little, Thassi gained on him. Everyone in Asgard was watching fearfully. With Loki back in time, the gods rushed off and laid great fires on the walls. Near fainting with exhaustion, the falcon flew over the wall and fell to the ground exhausted. In an instant, the flames leapt in the sky, and Thassi was burned. He fell and died. Idun and her golden apples were safely back home. Youth and beauty returned to Asgard forevermore. So, the Norse gods originally they aren't immortal. They're they weren't they're not like the Greek or the Roman or the Egyptian, where they're gods, so they're naturally young and beautiful for forever. um and they could be killed by people. I mean, it would be very, very difficult if somebody wanted to kill them, but it could be done. And the only reason they stayed young and beautiful and lived forever was because of another Asir's apples. That's literally all it was. There's a lot of stories like that you don't really would think are like the reality of the situation, but it's just what it is. Um, there's Fenrir, and the story about Fenrir and how he could bite through any chain except for the final one that was made by the dwarves. Or there's the story about Thor having to dress up as a girl. And there's a lot of different ones. It's some of them are mainly comedy. Um, others are you know um, others are more serious. Some are just sad. And some you just kind of sit there and scratch your head out, like, what the hell did I just read? Um, Another interesting part, though, and we can come back to. I'll probably, and this will be a weekly thing, so I'll probably touch up on Norse again next week. Before moving on to something else, because a lot of this like can be covered in a day or two. Um, Another thing that came with the Norse though is how they did some of their magic, and for a lot of the Norse gods, or deities, whatever you want to call them, um, it was just kind of an innate ability. But for some of them, they had to, and for humans, um, they had to do magic through runes, which I have a nice big book for, um, which goes over, you know, all of them. There's a lot of runes, and they all mean like different things, which is cool. Yeah, see if I can find it here. So this is, you guys can see that. That is all of the runes here. There's not a lot, but depending on how you combine them, depended on, on how they ended up. Because like each rune had an individual meaning, so if you use them individually, it was specifically for the meaning of that rune. But if you use them together, you could change the meaning based on how you put the runes together, and that's a whole nother. That's a lot to go over because it's a lot in this book. This book is in total, not including like the appendix, is 287 pages, and like this print is not, it's not big print. There's a lot in here, and there's different interpretations depending on like what source you look at. But there's the elder runes, which are like the old ones. But there was also references to it in Celtic mythology and other Germanic mythologies as well. And it's a little all over the place, really. There's a lot that isn't quite explained, just because it is kind of all over the place. Hold on a second. Minimize. Okay, I'm going to close out of that. And then I'm also going to, actually, I'm going to open this one back up for a minute and close out of these. And I will be right back. All right. Ah. All right. Let's see. Let's see what else is there. I don't want to get into runes today, just because runes are. It's a lot, and I don't really want to kind of get into that. And then I don't plan on this stream being too much longer, just because I didn't want to make it too long or lengthy, and people just kind of get bored of it. But there are a few more things I can go over, like outside of the runes, because the runes will probably be like a whole nother stream. Just so things don't feel too crammed into one session. Like I said, I plan on doing this every week, so. Ow. Um, but and then Fenrir. In Norse mythology, Fenrir doesn't die. Um, like in the Marvel universe, like Fenrir's dead and hell breathes life back in him, and that's not the reality of it. He's good. I don't know what I don't know what he's doing today. I know he's still recovering from his surgery, Ink. So I really don't. I don't talk to. Really, I don't really talk to them much. Um, I think he's. I don't know what he's doing. I know he's still recovering though, and I know he's still dealing with it. Hi, Ken. Um, but so, like I say, Fenrir, isn't a pet to Hel. Fenrir is Hel's brother in traditional Norse mythology, which is a mess in and of itself. But hey, do what you got to do. Look, he got screwed by a horse, so. Um, but there was terrible foreboding concerning the fate of the three beings. And they were absolutely correct that Jormungandr would later kill Thor during Ragnarok, which doesn't happen in the Marvel universe. Jormungandr actually kills Thor during Ragnarok, which is the downfall of the cosmos, an event which would be largely brought about by Hel, because she refuses to release the radiant god Balder from the underworld. And then during the events of Ragnarok, Fenrir eats Odin, which is a mess in and of itself. And it's another thing that Marvel gets wrong, sadly. Where Odin doesn't just get old and die. He gets eaten, which is always fun. And so in order to keep them at bay, they threw Jormungandr into the ocean, where he encircled Midgard. English. How they relegated to the underworld, or her own. Literally, she has her own world, which is literally hell. And Fenrir, however, inspired too much fear in them for them to let him out from under their watchful eyes, so they reared the pup themselves in Asgard. And only Tyr, the I'm not even gonna try and say that word because I'm gonna fuck it up. But he was the upholder of law and honor. He was the only one that dared approach Fenrir to feed him. um, However, Fenrir grew at an alarming rate, and soon the gods decided that his stay in Asgard had to be temporary. But knowing how much devastation he would cause if he were allowed to roam free, they attempted to bind him with various chains. They were able to gain his trust and consent by telling him that they were tests of his strength, and clapping and cheering when he broke free of each chain. Until finally they sent a messenger down to Svartalheim, which is the realm of the dwarves. Um, and they were able to forge a chain whose strength couldn't be equaled. Um, it was wrought from the sound of cat's footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of mountains, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. In other words, things which don't exist and against which it's therefore futile to struggle. And the chain's name was Glepnir. Um, when the gods presented Fenrir with a curiously light and supple Glepnir, the wolf suspected trickery and refused to be bound with it unless one of the gods lay his or her hand in his jaws as a pledge of good faith. None of the gods agreed, knowing that this would mean the loss of a hand and the breaking of an oath. Um, until Tyr, for the good of all life, volunteered to fulfill the wolf's demand. And sure enough, when Fenrir discovered that he was unable to escape from Glepnir, he chomped off and swallowed Tyr's hand. And then he was transported to some suitably lonely and desolate place. Chain was tied to a boulder, and a sword was placed in the wolf's jaw to hold them open. As he howled wildly and ceaselessly, a foamy river called Expectation flowed from his drooling mouth, and there, in in that sordid state, he remained until Ragnarok. And a little background on Tyr is that Tyr was a war god, but he wasn't just a war god. He was a divine legal expert and upholder of the law. Um, when he sacrifices his hand, he not only procures the salvation of the gods, but also regularizes it. He renders legal that which without him would have been pure fraud. The gods had sworn an oath to Fenrir, and the guarantee of their intention to follow through with their pledge was Tyr's hand or arm. The percentage of the limb bitten off by Fenrir is irrelevant. When the gods didn't follow through with their oath, Fenrir was entitled to Tyr's hand as compensation by allowing the wolf to claim his limb. Tyr fulfilled the god's end of the bargain, grisly and tragic though it was for him. Which sucks. um, and Ragnarok is, I think they kind of mostly got it right. Um, Except for it's not just Asgard that gets destroyed when Ragnarok comes around. It's like the whole cosmos. Um, um, because Ragnarok is the cataclysmic destruction of the cosmos and everything in it, even the gods. When Norse mythology is considered as a chronological set of tales, the story of Ragnarok naturally comes at the very end. For the Vikings, however, or the Nords as they called themselves, the myth of Ragnarok was a prophecy of what was to come at some unspecified and unknown time in the future, but it had profound ramifications for how they understood the world in their own time. Um, and then someday, whenever the Norns, those inscrutable spinners of fate, decree it, there shall come a great winter. Unlike any other the world has yet seen, the biting winds will blow snow from all directions, and the warmth of the sun will fail, plunging the earth into unprecedented cold. Um, this winter shall last for the length of 3 normal winters with no summers in between. Mankind will be so desperate for food and other necessity of life that all laws and morals will fall away, leaving only the bare struggle for survival. It will be an age of swords and axes. Brother will slay brother, father will slay son, and son will slay father. Um, the wolves Skull and Hati, who have hunted the sun and the moon through the sky since the beginning of time, will at last catch their prey. The stars too will disappear, leaving nothing but a black void in the heavens. Yggdrasil, the great tree that holds the cosmos together, will tremble, and all the trees and even the mountains will fall to the ground. The chain that has been holding back the monstrous wolf Fenrir will snap, and the beast will run free. Jormungand, the mighty serpent who dwells at the bottom of the ocean and encircles the land, will rise from the depths, spilling the seas over all the earth as he makes landfall. These convulsions will shake the ship Naglfar free from its moorings. The ship, which is made from the fingernails and toenails of dead men and women, will sail easily over the flooded earth. Its crew will be an army of giants, the forces of chaos and destruction. And its captain will be none other than Loki, the traitor to the gods, who have broken free of the chains in which the gods have bound him. Fenrir, with fire blazing from his eyes and nostrils, will run across the earth, with his lower jaw on the ground and his upper jaw against the top of the sky, devouring everything in his path. Jormungand will spit his venom over all the world, poisoning land, water, and air alike. The dome of the sky will be split, and from the crack shall emerge the fire giants from Muspelheim. Their leader shall be Surt, with a flaming sword brighter than the sun in his hand. As they march across Bifrost, the rainbow bridge to Asgard, the home of the gods, the bridge will break and fall behind them. An ominous horn blast will ring out. This will be Heimdall, the divine sentry, blowing the Galahorn to announce the arrival of the moment the gods have feared. Odin will anxiously consult the head of Mimir, the wisest of all beings, for counsel. The gods will decide to go to battle, even though they know what the prophecies have foretold concerning the outcome of this clash. They will arm themselves and meet their enemies on a battlefield called Vigrid. Odin will fight Fenrir, and by his side will be the Einherjar, the host of his chosen human warrior, whom he has kept in Valhalla for just this moment. Odin and the champions of men will fight more valiantly than anyone has ever fought before, but it will not be enough. Fenrir will swallow Odin and his men. Then one of Odin's sons, Vidar, burning with rage, will charge the beast to avenge his father. On one of his feet will be the shoe that has been crafted for this very purpose. It has been made from all the scraps of leather that human shoemakers have ever discarded. And with it, Vidar will hold open the monster's mouth, then he will stab his sword through the wolf's throat, killing him. Another wolf, Garm and the god Tyr, will slay each other. Heimdall and Loki will do the same, putting a final end to the trickster's treachery, but costing the gods one of their best in the process. The god Freyr and the giant Surt will also be the end of each other. Thor and Jormungand, those age-old foes, will both finally have their chance to kill the other. Thor will succeed in felling the great snake with the blows of his hammer, but the serpent will have covered him in so much venom that he will not be able to stand for much longer. He will take 9 paces before falling dead himself and adding his blood to the already saturated soil of Vigrid. Then the remains of the world will sink into the sea, and there will be nothing left but the void. Creation and all that has occurred since will be completely undone as it had never happened. Some say that this is the end of the tale, and of all tales for that matter, but others hold that a new world, green and beautiful, will rise out of the waters. Vidar and a few other gods, Vali, Balder, Hoder, and Thor's sons, Modi and Magni, will survive the downfall of the old world and will live joyously in the new one. A man and a woman, Lif and Lifthrasir, will have hidden themselves in the cataclysm in a place called the Wood of Hodmimir, and will now come out and populate the lush land in which they will find themselves. A new sun, the daughter of the previous one, will rise in the sky, and all of this will be presided over by a new almighty ruler. So, death and destruction and rebirth. But And there's two versions of it. So, like, one version is there's no rebirth, and the other one there is. And it just kind of depended, really, on what version of the story, because it differed. Why do I have a notification? Oh, nothing I actually care about. Which is fine. Despite, it also, carrying the meaning of, you live in a world that will one day be obliterated. The very gods themselves will perish with it. Nothing of value will be spared, not even the memory of anything that ever had value. But it also held another meaning. In addition to being a prophecy about the future that revealed much about the underlying nature of the world along the way, the myth of Ragnarok also served as a paradigmatic model for human action. For the Nords, the tale didn't produce hopelessness as much as inspiration and invigoration. Just as the gods will one day die, so too will each individual human being. And just as the gods will go out and face their fate with dignity, honor, and courage, so too can humans. In this view, the inevitability of death and misfortune should not paralyze us, but should instead inspire us to hold noble attitudes and do noble deeds, the kind worthy of being recounted by bards many generations after we ourselves are gone. Ow. So like and it's definitely like the story is very intense and death and destruction, but at the same time, like it did spur them to be the way that they were, because it was like, okay, well, they're gonna die and everything, and so will I, but I can still do something with my life. Um, it was the inspiration of I can do something great as well, and it's not just the gods that can do something great. And I think that's where we're gonna leave off. We'll touch on some other lore and runes next week, and see where that goes. I need to. Where is my stream manager? Because I need to put a thing in my stream so I know where I ended. But next week we'll go over tales and see how things and go over some more of the tales, because there's a lot of different stories, and like I said earlier, some of them are comedies, some of them are tragedies, some of them are just what the fuck. But I think not tomorrow, but next week we'll go over some more of the stories, and we'll also go over the runes as well. Or at least like the start going over the runes, because like I said, there's a lot to go over with that. There is a lot. But that'll be the end of it. I want to put a marker. Thank you. Okay. There we go. Now we have a marker in there. When I go back and look at that, there'll be that marker there, which is nice. Do want to check something else while I'm looking at this? Actually, end of end of if I can type today, apparently. All right, there we go. It's the end of that. I'm gonna have to keep that open for a bit just because I don't really have another option, sadly. But I'm going to put a pause right here. Get up, do some things, figure out what else I'm gonna do tonight. I will be breaking down the session, the mythology session, into videos that I can put on YouTube. Probably won't be up for a little while though, just because I'm still figuring out the whole video editing and everything part of all of this. But at some point they will be up on YouTube as well. But actually, I think I'm gonna end here, and then I'll probably restart up in about an hour. That way, like, I can just keep this sectioned off, this stream. That way people can go back and listen specifically to, the mythology stuff, and it's not, extended past that, because I know that can get a bit lengthy, especially when I just kind of sit here sometimes, just kind of hang out. But thank you for everybody that dropped in. I do hope you guys enjoyed listening at the very least. And even if you didn't really enjoy it, I hope you guys at least learned something. And I will see you guys next week for another Mythology Monday.